The dust in the Athenaeum Grand Library had a particular scent, a mixture of decaying paper, old leather, and time itself. Alara Vance, head librarian, breathed it in like a fine wine as she navigated the towering canyons of dark oak shelves. Her world was one of perfect, quiet order, a symphony of meticulously catalogued knowledge. Every book had its place, and every record, its purpose. This morning, that purpose was the Digital Archive Project. Seated at her mahogany desk, the green glow of her banker's lamp casting a warm pool of light, Alara was deep in the library's digital conversion. She scrolled through scanned images of old checkout cards, her fingers tracing the spidery cursive of patrons long gone. It was tedious, essential work, a transfer of the library's soul from paper to pixel. Then she saw it, a record for a book titled The Atlas of Forgotten Places. The author was listed as a cartographer. The due date stamp was clear. March 17, 1974. And in the return column, there was nothing but a blank, yellowed space. 50 years. Alara murmured to the silent, cavernous room. Her librarian's soul twitched with a quiet outrage. A book, lost for half a century. She pulled up the fine ledger. The system was old, but thorough. A fine of $8.75, a significant sum for the time, had been accrued, but then, a further entry, logged on the very day the book was due. Balance paid in full, transaction, anonymous donation, asterisk. Alara leaned back in her chair, the leather creaking. That was odd. Why pay the fine but not return the book? It felt like a loose thread in the otherwise tight weave of her domain. She couldn't just leave it. She spent the next hour in the sub-basement archives, a place even more hushed and shadowy than the main floors. Here, in the climate-controlled air, resided the library's physical history. She found the 1974 ledger, a heavy, cloth-bound volume. Her gloved finger found the entry for the Atlas of Forgotten Places. The borrower's name was Professor Alistair Finch, and next to his name, in the same impeccable hand that filled the rest of the ledger, was a small, curious notation, fines cleared, matter settled. Driven by a growing unease, Alara abandoned her digital project. She pulled the ledgers for 1940. Then 1910. Her heart began to beat a little faster. There it was, again and again, the Atlas of Forgotten Places. Checked out by a historian named Eleanor Vance in 1940. No relation, she thought with a strange chill. Checked out by a cartographer named Samuel Jones in 1910. Each time, the book was never returned. Each time, the fines were paid in full by an anonymous donor on the very day it was due. Her search through old newspaper archives on a public terminal confirmed her dread. Professor Alistair Finch, March 18, 1974. Renowned professor of geography reported missing. Eleanor Vance, 1940. Promising historian vanishes without a trace. Samuel Jones, 1910. Explorer fails to return from expedition. The words blurred before her eyes. It was a pattern, a ghostly trail of absences all leading back to this single, elusive book. The connection was undeniable, and terrifying. This wasn't negligence. This was something else. There was only one person who might have the answers. Someone whose life was as intertwined with the library's history as the ivy on its stone walls. She found him in the founder's reading room, sitting in his usual winged armchair by the marble fireplace. Mr. Sterling, Alara said, her voice softer than she intended. The elderly benefactor looked up from his book, his eyes pale and sharp behind his spectacles. His face was a roadmap of wrinkles. And his suit, as always, was immaculate. He was the library's greatest patron. a man whose family name was etched on the building's cornerstone. Alara, my dear, you look troubled. Is the archive project proving difficult? Quote, it's not the project, she said, stepping closer. The fire crackled, casting dancing shadows around them. It's a book, the Atlas of Forgotten Places. Quote, Mr. Sterling's expression did not change, but a profound stillness settled over him. He closed his own book with a soft, definitive thud. Ah, he said, you've found it. Quote, you know about it. Alara's pulse thrummed in her ears. The borrowers, Professor Finch, Eleanor Vance, they all disappeared. The same day they checked it out. The fines were always paid. By you, wasn't it? Quote, he studied her for a long moment, his gaze weighing and measuring her curiosity, her resolve. The fines are a formality, he said, his voice low and even. A closing of the account in this world. They did not vanish. Alara, not in the way you think. Quote, then what happened to them? She demanded, her professional composure cracking. They opened the atlas. Mr. Sterling said, leaning forward slightly. The firelight caught the silver of his cane. And they found that it was not merely a book of maps. It is a gateway, a key. The places within it are real. Alara, hidden, forgotten, but utterly real. They saw a world beyond this one. A world of silent cities and undiscovered shores. And they chose to walk into it. They chose to stay. Quote, the explanation was so absurd, so utterly fantastical, that the reading room seemed to tilt around her. A gateway. Real places. She wanted to laugh, to dismiss him as a senile old man. But the certainty in his eyes, the chilling pattern of the evidence, held her tongue. I am the book's guardian, he continued, his tone now one of solemn duty. I do not force the choice upon anyone. I merely make the opportunity available to those with the right temperament. Those who feel the weight of this world a little too heavily, or the call of the unknown a little too strongly. You have such a temperament. Alara, I've seen the way you look at the oldest maps. The way you long for the stories they don't tell. Quote, he rose slowly, leaning on his cane. The choice, as it was for them, is now yours. To continue your life of quiet order here, or to see what lies beyond the page. He gave her a small, sad smile and walked past her, his footsteps echoing into the silence. Alara stood frozen, the crackle of the fire the only sound. Her mind raced, trying to process the impossible truth. She eventually walked back to her desk in a daze, the grand library feeling suddenly like a gilded cage. And there it was, sitting squarely in the center of her green blotter, where no book had been moments before, was a large, leather-bound,